We are back live in the O'Reilly booth at Velocity 2011. I'm joined now by Nicolas Zakas, author of High Performance JavaScript. Nicolas, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So are you surprised at JavaScript's current position?
Not really. I think that it's one of those languages that was misunderstood for a long time. And then as more books started coming out and the Ajax explosion, I think a lot of people really started to understand sort of beautiful parts of the language and kind of fall in love with it. And I think it was pretty natural after that for more people to come on, and then other people try to figure out where else can I use JavaScript.
Sure. Wow, we're live. So why has JavaScript become so important to you? What does it do that other languages can't?
Well, I don't think that it's really a matter of what JavaScript does that other languages can't. It's just done in a way that I think makes it a little bit more accessible to people. There really aren't a lot of kind of arbitrary rules to remember. You don't need to worry about white space. You don't really need to worry about things like classes. You just start writing some code and stuff just kind of works.
Right. So when you're beginning optimization efforts, should you start with JavaScript or should you start with another aspect? Is JavaScript where most of the problems are going to lie initially?
Well, it depends on the application itself. So I always say that the first step to performance optimization is measurement. Is you actually have to do some benchmarking, do some measurement of your application and find out what's slow. And then that will tell you whether you should be looking at JavaScript because that's where you're spending a lot of time, or if you should be looking at the number of resources that are getting loaded onto the page, or even just the sheer number of bytes that you're sending over the wire.
What is time to interactivity? Why is that an important metric?
So time to interactivity is basically the amount of time between when the user types in their URL, hits enter, and the time that they can complete a task on the page that comes up. And the reason why that's important is because most users are going to a site to complete some task. And if they can complete it fairly quickly, they feel like the site is pretty fast. If it takes a while for them to complete it, they feel like that it's much slower. So what you really want to do is make sure they can complete that task as quickly as possible. And so what that means is don't freeze the page as it's loading by introducing a bunch of JavaScript during that time, but you want to add it in afterwards so that people actually have a chance to maybe click on a link or do a search or something like that they actually don't even need the JavaScript for initially.
What's your take on Node?
Node is great. I think actually it's been a long time coming for JavaScript to reemerge on the server. Now, a lot of people don't even remember that when JavaScript was first introduced by Netscape, it was run both on the client and on the server, on the Netscape Enterprise server. And it was really kind of designed to be able to do that, to write one language both in the client and on the server. And so it really was just a matter of time, I think, before it ended up back on the server again.
Do you think that we're past the point where people are going to continue to refer to JavaScript as a toy language? I keep hearing that pop up every once in a while.
Yeah, I don't think we're there quite yet. There's still a lot, especially people who've spent a decade or more doing things like Java or C++. They come over and immediately look at it and say like, well, you don't really have type checking. Well, where's your real inheritance?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to play in this playground. I think we're getting to the point within a few more years that people will start saying, okay, I can really use it. But I think we have a little ways to go yet.
So last question for you, and it's kind of an odd one. Do JavaScript, HTML5, and CSS, are they forming their own sort of stack? Is that starting to happen?
Yeah, I mean, they actually are. When you see that now you can actually bundle up web applications and put them on your desktop. I mean, Adobe has a product, and there's a bunch of other ones out there that do the same thing. And people who are still trying to do that. And I think what people have realized is that for years we spent building up GUIs in code, where you have to say like add a panel here, add a button here, so on and so forth. And finding it's much easier to just say like layout in HTML, and you apply your styling with CSS, and then you add your behavior with JavaScript. And if you can do that, you can create an app that runs anywhere, which you can't really say with stuff like C# or Objective-C, stuff like that. So it really is starting to become its own stack, but it's just in the beginning phases of that.
Right, early days. So thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.